Hey everyone, Matt from StrongerYou here. We're going through part 2 of progressing your accessory work today. Today we're getting into how to program this into a peak and have it fit within a tapering volume structure and increasing intensity structure we see with common powerlifting programs. Because at the end of the day, powerlifting is about competing and nobody really cares what you can barbell row if you got a 2-cent squat. So let's get into this. Last time we talked about the double progression model itself. We're not going to worry too much about that today. Today we're going to be talking about programming rep ranges within that and when to just simply omit your accessory work in favor of having more recovery and more time spent on your peaking program itself or strength program. So we've got a 16-week, pretty standard looking peaking program. This could be something like you see in the last 16 weeks of prep for a meet. Most intermediate lifters are going to see something like this, where we've got about 8 weeks of strength in a 3 up, 1 down model. So they've got 3 weeks of overloading training and then a week of deload. And we've got 2 blocks of that, training primarily in the 4 to 6 rep range on the main lifts. And then the peaking block represents the last 8 weeks of that peak, training primarily strength in the 1 to 3 rep range, where we're really working on refining technique, getting comfortable with heavy loads, and then reducing fatigue as much as we can. So here's where we get into this. Realistically speaking, this first strength block and this first peaking block are going to be on the higher end of the rep scheme for the block itself. So realistically, you're going to see more 5s and 6s in this first strength block and more 4s and 5s in this second strength block. Again, it's fluid, so you could train triples as well. There's nothing wrong with getting strong with sets of 3 here, but we've done these sort of very separate rep ranges just for ease of example here. So probably more 4s and 5s, probably more 5s and 4s. Probably more 2s and 3s, and then probably more 1s and 2s, right? Again, just that slowly tapering model that we see as we get closer to a meet. We want to be more specific to what we're trying to compete in. So with that out of the way, let's talk about how to program the accessory works themselves. So in this first block, we're coming off of presumably some kind of a hypertrophy block or a higher volume phase or something a little bit less specific where let's assume we were using that 4 sets of 8 to 12 model that we were talking about in our part 1, right? So we can probably keep sets around the same and rely on the reduction in volume just by reducing the reps themselves. So we might go down to something along the lines of a 7 to 10 model, right? And we can have that double progression happen there, and we do 4 sets. So right away, we've dropped volume around 20% on average compared to that sets of 8 to 12 that we were talking about a moment ago. And then you could probably use that same model going in here. You could even tighten it up in a like 6 to 9 or something like that. But we're going to drop down your number of sets to 3. So right away, again, our volume or our number of reps that we're training per set is very similar, but we've automatically dropped volume about 25%. So as the training gets a little bit harder, we've got a bit more room for recovery built in because we're not pushing as hard in the accessory side of things, which as we get into a peaking program can be called like junk volume, if you will, because it's digging into very, very hard training time, and anything you're doing on top of the main lifts is, we need to balance that out against how much you're doing that's not main lifts. So getting into our next one, we're going to go 2 to 3 sets, and we're going to bring the reps down to about 4 to 6. So again, smaller, tighter rep range again here. We got a lower number of sets again, and we're just starting to really bring down how much extra time and effort and recovery we're spending on that accessory work. And then our last block, we're actually just going to simply omit anything that's not essential. So this is where you're going to go into a little bit more maintenance-based work. So as a lifter or as a coach, you're going to know what your lifters need to kind of maintain for that last month in order to just simply stay healthy. So they're going to have some kind of shoulder health drills or hip health drills or mobility work or some dedicated accessory strength work that they're going to need to do to just keep them in one piece. That from an injuries prevention standpoint and peaking standpoint, it works best for them. But trying to get your best 3 rep max on barbell rows and heavy deadlifts in a peaking block and peak your bench and peak your squat and try to hit a new PR on curls, all that has a cost. And the lower we can bring that cost in the accessory work side of things, the more training currency that gives us to spend on the peaking side. So no, you're not going to lose all your gains by not doing something for a month. Frankly, by rotating through exercises, you're bound to not do certain exercises for a few months at a time anyways. So this kind of sticks to the same logic. And peaking programs are hard. So get back to it when you get to the volume block. Probably start out a little bit lighter again, like you would with your normal training, and train some higher reps again once you get around to that after your peak, after your competition date, whatever it ends up being, right? So in a nutshell, we've taken our volume and similar to our regular training volume. We've really tapered the volume on the accessory work down. And on top of that, we're getting a little bit more specific with our exercise selections here as well, just simply by reducing our volume and number of sets. That's all for now. If you got any questions, feel free to leave them in the comments below or by direct message on Facebook or Instagram. Thanks. We'll see you guys next time.